Welcome back. Now we're looking at the planned nationwide strike of resident doctors in Nigeria, if it's to hold or not to hold. I mean, this strike was supposed to start today, but it has been temporarily suspended following some, discussions with the Vice President. Well, we'll be expanding more on that this morning with Dr. Ike Nnamani, who is the President, Association of Resident Doctors, ASUth. You're welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Good morning and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
So let's talk about this this planned strike. What exactly happened to the November agreement that led to the strike, that was supposed to start today?
Okay. Well, in a nutshell, we had series of issues. Okay. Unfortunately, our country doesn't capitalize on health, So you see us struggling, doing the things others are supposed to be doing while we focus on the clinical activities. The strike, we had about 19 issues, 19 demands from the government, federal government. But when they said, okay, what is the minimum demand that they can meet, and we'll call up the strike, we said, okay, let's take it down to 9. We did that. We entered an MOU with the federal government. But what happened was, okay, one of the thing is a lot of our members are being owed arrears. Some in 5 months, some in 3 months. There is a lot of discrepancy in indiscriminate deduction, disparity in people's salaries, no explanation. This is what you would know. You would say that we focus on the clinical activities while these people handle this kind of issue, but they don't do that. Okay, some of our doctors were illegally sacked at Lokoja, about 5 of them. So we said, okay, these are the 9 key things that we need you to meet up. Then we call off the strike. They said, okay, we're going to do it. We have to suspend the strike. So by the time we saw that there was nothing, until the time elapsed, nothing was done about it. That's why I said, no, we have to hit again industrial action in order to get the federal government to understand and look into our problems. We can't be in the clinic treating the patients when our own welfare are not being taken care of. But along the line, the Vice President, Senator Shettima, stepped in and said, let me look at this problem. Let's look into it. Give me time. And we said, okay. So that's what happened in 2012 will not repeat itself again, where we have ASU strike and the then President Jonathan stepped in and said, give me time. And people say, no, we're not going to do that. It was termed anti-government, and it was seen as if these people are not respectful, all that happened around that time. But this time we say, no, no problem. Let's listen to him. Let's give him time. And that's exactly why we're here today.
Yeah, but don't you think that, repeatedly announcing strikes and suspending strike, don't you think it affects the bargaining power? Because now the strike has been suspended pending, when the demands are being met. And if they are not met again in 2 weeks, I believe, another strike will start. So, I mean, what do you think about the dynamics exactly? And
I want you to know that we suspending our strike is not coming from the side of a weakness or not. No, it's a goodwill, actually, to the federal government. We can't have somebody like the Vice President coming in, appealing to us with some gestures that we think, oh, let's give it a try. What we want is results. What we want is a good health system. What we want is a good welfare, healthy doctors, So if somebody is ready to do that, giving him the chance does not really affect the bargaining power. It's not from the side of weakness. We are not, actually. But we said, okay, it's out of respect. It's a goodwill. And we hope that from now to 25th of January, which is when our January NEC is going to hold, we expect that something must have been done.
All right, so now you mentioned earlier that you have about 9 demands from the federal government.
Yes.
Now, which of these demands, I mean, if all 9 are not met, which of them would you say are the core demands that have to be met if this strike is to, permanently be kept down for the moment?
You can't unshell an egg, take away the white layer and expect to still see yolk inside yolk. Already we've tailed it down to 9. This 9 is the core thing. Okay? So we expect that this 9 be met. If the 9 is not met, we are going to resume our industrial.
Tell us the 9, because you mentioned the arrears and some other things.
Well,
tell us exactly
yes,
the 9.
I mentioned that 5 of our doctors were sacked illegally. Okay, we asked that they be reinstated. The second one is indiscriminate deduction from our salaries at the federal level, of course. The third is the issue with our national body, the colleges, medical colleges, where we have our doctors who go for part 1. If you really understand, you go for part 1 exam. Now you're a specialist, and they're saying, no, we're not going to give you a certificate to empower you to be that specialist. We're going to wait until you finish your residency program and become a consultant before we give you the certificate. It doesn't go down well with that. We have a lot of our doctors who are being owed some salaries, arrears about 5 months, 3 months. We have where doctors, you are working, and the entry point, our entry point, before now they try to tell it down to Commerce 2. So we're now saying no, Commerce 3 should be the entry point, and it should go across board and all that. So this is part of the 9 things that we are requesting for.
Now, should these demands not be met to the satisfaction of NAD and resident doctors withdraw their services, what about the patients and the people that are in the hospital? I mean, what plans are also put in place for people who would need medical services and medical care?
Well, you should know that these questions will always come in because medicine is patient-based. It's all about the patient, okay? Remember that these doctors too are humans. You don't have a doctor who is not, there is this our terminology that said healthy doctor, healthier patients. You don't have a doctor who is sick, who is not okay mentally, psychologically, and the person is coming to take care of a patient. Even you will say, no, this doctor should not take care of my relative and all that. So what we are asking for is not just some kind of selfish thing. We're also asking for a better health system. Our facilities and all that, if you check all the 19 demands we've made. So it's patient-based, all right? In fact, a lot of our patients are beginning to speak up. If you go on the net, you see where some patients who now understand the issue and know that health is everybody's responsibility, they're beginning to speak up on the issue, calling on the federal government to do something about the doctors in order for doctors to go to work. We are supposed to man the clinical activities. We're supposed to be in the clinic, not chasing around all accounts responsibilities and other administrative responsibilities. But in situations where these things are not done, we can remain there. When our families are suffering, our welfare also is not being taken care of. So that's when we say, no, we have to take time to go and really take care of ourselves before we come back to the patient. Of course, it never goes well with the situation whenever we go on strike, and that's why we try to exhaust every dialogue opportunity, every possible means to sort it out instead of industrial action.
So what would you now say about, these industrial actions to be done, in states that comply, because some states, take care of their doctors' welfare as well. So what about industrial actions in states rather than, a general industrial actions, like for states that do not comply with these things? Okay,
talking about states, I want to take this opportunity to really express deep appreciation to His Excellency, Dr. Barrister Pitamba. In fact, Enugu State is being emulated. When the national body talks, they refer some things to Enugu State. Okay, the governor has been so good and so understanding in the health system. If you look at his manifesto, you see he had a robust plan for the health system, and we see them playing out. So states like this, we will definitely, if you look at our communique, we mentioned these governors and we appreciate them. This is what we are asking for. And if we have any state that complies and try to consider the health and welfare of their health workers, we don't stop to appreciate that person. Okay. However, there are states that really don't care. You know, we've had in the past where some states, even in the southeast, were owing doctors about 21 months salaries, 21 months. You know, so it's horrible. So, but when we start seeing changes, we encourage these people and we make sure that our doctors in those places, they do their best to ensure that the health system there is up and going.
Now, earlier on, you mentioned something about, doctors, apart from taking care of the patients, doing other, things in the hospital like accounts and all of that. How much of this thing would you say is as a result of this Japa syndrome? Because a lot of medical professionals, doctors, nurses, everyone seems to be moving away from Nigeria. Now, how much of it would you say has impacted the Nigerian medical system so much so that the doctors that are in the country are now seem to be stretched?
Nigeria happened to be a country where individuals, before you do something good, you have to pay for it. Before you do something good, you have to pay for it. For the health system, these things are the reasons for actually the brain drain, the Japa syndrome. This is the reason, okay? If I have an opportunity to work in a greener pasture, why do I stay back here to kill myself? Now, few of us that stayed back, it's not as if I'm not able to get a job there. No. If you still go there, we have situations where, the former president during the ceremony, the late Buhari, you see his family appreciating Nigerian doctors who took care of them back in the UK. So if you go there, it's still our own doctors that are making waves because we are very intelligent. We are knowledgeable about what we do. We have the skill. All right. So, but we decided to stay back home, take care of our own health system. The leaders, the politicians, the political leaders, they should aid us every opportunity. Because if it's not working, it's a matter of time. One will get tired. We mustn't be fighting. It gets exhausting. So if I look and say, it's not working, what else? I'll try to walk away. So most of our Nigerians that leave the country is not because we really want to go over there, but it's because you've looked and see that there is no light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe because the tunnel is too long, the stress is too much, you don't expect to. Let's just live here. But if we have the government supporting the health system, supporting the health workers, there's no how you will see most of us in that number leave the country.
Now, these negotiations, most times government often says that, these funds have been released. And of course, doctors like you would say that you haven't felt the impact. You're not seeing the money. You're not seeing, what it is that the government says that they have done. Where would you say that this breakdown occurs? Or where would you say that this problem starts from? Would you say that it is the government that is the problem? Or would you say that along the line, in the chain of whatever it is trickling down to the doctors, that something is amiss in the system?
I think it has to do with Nigeria as a country. Health is costly every other place in the world, I must say. But you see their leaders trying to cushion that effect on the indigenes, on the citizens of their country. This particular one had to do with Nigeria. In the course of our engagement with government, every now and then, for instance, the Vice President stepping in and asking us to give him time and trust his goodwill to be able to mediate in this and try to see results. You see that it's not as if the government, even the presidency, it's not as if they don't know about this struggle before now. But we noticed that in our process, in our course of engaging the federal government, is that at a time, bureaucracy comes in, okay? You go to this office, they say we're waiting for authority. From who? You go to this place, they say we are waiting for authority. From who? So I think it's more of interest in health system. It's not just with the government this time. It's also with every individual in Nigeria. Every individual. You see that our people do not even come to hospital to seek for health assistance on time. So most times what you have is complication. Okay? Some people will say, don't go to this particular hospital. If you go there, you will die. But they will not tell you the condition in which they present to that hospital. Hospital is when you come on time, you go on time. If you go to mess yourself up in some herbal centers or with some patent drug dealers, by the time you are coming in, it's complication we are looking at. We manage you. The same thing, the same syndrome goes even to the government. It's not about, I think it's about interest. If you know that doctors are working in the clinic, they are working tirelessly, we don't need anything to obstruct that work, okay? You want to settle some other things, other logistics to make sure they're okay. So if you don't think there is need, forget those people, those secular or those individuals. You will not care about their work. Therefore, situations like this, and by the time you want to step in, you have to leave the clinic. You can't do both. You leave the clinic, you go to sort yourself out, then you run back to the clinic. Patients are going to be suffering. So it's a Nigerian thing. It's we've not come to understand to take health to the level where it's supposed to be.
So who then would you say should be held accountable, for these lapses, or if these implementation, delays persist? Would you say it's the federal government that should be held accountable, or the state government, or the CMDs? Like who exactly should be held accountable?
Well, as of today, we will know that Enugu State government is actually on the top of good health system. They've not reached where they are supposed to be, but you can see work on ground trying to effort to reach there. Now, in this case, in the case of NAT strike, it has to do directly with the federal government. Okay, as I've mentioned, it has to do with the federal government, and I'm so happy that the Vice President Senator Shettima has stepped in, and we're expecting good results from the process. Now, who should be held accountable? I think every individual in the tree, every member of the process, okay? The account department have the part to play. The logistic department, the administrative department, the civil service, they all have parts to play. So by the time we get to every stage, we address it. When we get to any stage, we address it. So at any point in a particular location or stage, the people there should be held accountable.
Let's talk about public trust in all of this, because this is not the first time Nigerians are hearing about strike, both in all aspects, in all sectors. And now we're talking about the medical system. Has the union considered how this might affect public trust, Nigerians and public trust when it comes to Nigeria's healthcare system and the doctors and their performance?
Well, public trust. Yeah, that's a very sensitive aspect of this whole thing. But it gets worse. Okay? Public trust. It's actually the main issue on doctors. This is why we don't try to hit immediately. We will wait. They will push us. They will push us, ignore us, until there is no more space. That's when we start making noise. That's when we start crying out. That's when we start calling for help, because of public trust. Now, when it comes to health, public trust is not really our objective here. It's to make sure that even the few that are able to access that care in your center, that they get what they come for. Okay, so we just know that it's not easy on any doctor to go on strike. That's why we always say warning strike. Before warning strike, we bring threats of strike. Okay, we call your attention. There is no doctor, any association of doctors that say we are going on strike, that you will not, if you investigate them very well, that will not have series of letters, communications to those offices. Okay, they must have communicated over and over again, and if it's not working, that's when they have to try this other means. Okay, so public trust is important in any system. Public trust is important even in health. It's actually a very crucial aspect of health. But just know that if the public is communicated very well, they will understand that this fight is not just doctors' fight, it's everybody's fight.
But do you think that it's also because of this public trust that most patients usually don't come to the hospital initially? Because you made mention of going to some of these traditional and patent.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Most times in our country is because of fear of expenses. We are poor in this country. And like I said, health is costly everywhere in the world. And that's where we have to start looking at insurance scheme, health insurance scheme for everybody. Okay? We are poor in this country. But what I want to drop out there is, from my experience, I work with accident and emergency department. From my experience, the patients end up spending more when they've gone to these places and they've come down with complications. You spend more, you stay longer in the hospital, and most times the prognosis, they are poor. But when you come to the hospital, you see that those your fears are not even really true. When you come, when you're relatively okay, at least you're psychologically okay, you're able to walk, and you come into the hospital, maybe you pay for your card because of documentation. It's very important for legal engagement. Now, you pay for that, you see your doctor. The doctor sees you, tells you what your problem is, and possible solutions. You see, at this point, you're still communicating with the doctor, you're following up, you know what you are looking at. If you're going to have to do some investigations, they're going to tell you, nobody will force you. And nobody will say, let's go to your bank and pick your money. No, it's with your consent. They give you the form, you go to do the investigations. If there's any treatment, they write the drugs for you, you procure your drug. Now look at the whole thing. See that at every point in this engagement, you are aware and you are consciously making decisions. But when you come in critically ill, you see that you may need, okay, they run around for oxygen, sometimes life support and all that. You are no more in charge. So anything they say, you want to even start begging for money. Some people sell property to be able to come up with these things because these things come highly expensive. All right. So you look at it that when you come to the hospital with that your problem that you think it's going to cost you, it won't. At that initial time, maybe 1, 2, 3 drugs, the system is stabilized. You go to eat and drink water, and you'll be fine. But when you go to those places, you come down with complications. You end up spending more. So I think it's poverty mindset and real poverty, fear of expenses that take our people to those places.
All right, so let's come back to this strike. I mean, doctors, you work mostly with ethics, and you people are quite professional. And so that I want to ask, is there an ethical line that resident doctors would refuse to cross, even if government remains unresponsive or does not come through with the demands that you're making when it comes to patients and, you know, medical services?
Yes. Ethics is everything in professional system. Okay, not just the hospital. In the hospital, people look at it because you have to deal with life. So it's only doctors that they remember that take oath, unfortunately. Ethics, we uphold ethics. Is there an ethical line that even when the government reneges or something? Yes, but remember, these people are still human beings. Situations where we have doctors fainting, falling in clinics, falling in theater because of you will not be talking about ethics anymore. Okay, this guy completely needs help. So ethics is, there's nothing ethical here. We are not talking about, can we resuscitate this doctor? Can the doctor be alive again? It's only somebody who's alive that you want to start prosecuting for ethics. That is one. Now, ethical line, yes. And that is why in our mode of engagement, we try to communicate as much as possible. Media engagement also, in order to reach out to the public, you know, to let them know this. We try to lobby, we try to reach out. If we want to address a particular issue with a particular office, we look for offices around it who can talk to them, who can mediate. I'm telling you, go and look at any doctors association that brings a threat of strike. You will have pile of communications to those centers. They must have written letters, they must have requested over and over. They will start making subtle threats even before the whole strike action is brought up. All right. So yes, at that point, you are now looking at somebody who needs help, not about ethics now. Still remember that in the cadre of doctors, we have the consultants, we have the resident doctors, and the rest. So at any point, there are persons responsible directly for the patient. So in this way, we try to avoid any unethical activities around our struggle.
What about younger resident doctors or people who are possibly writing exams or closer to the end of their exams and things like that? And how this strike may also affect them and their careers, particularly, you know, those that are almost at the end of their exams or things like that, and the younger doctors.
I want us to establish that there is nothing about industrial action that tells good on both the receiver and the giver. Let's put it that way. It is not good on the doctors. It is not easy on the patients. Okay, so let's establish that. Now, for doctors who are probably at the verge of writing their exams and all these things, it's just like when you say, what about students process, maybe at the verge of their exams, and there's an ASU strike. It is never easy on anybody. But remember, imagine this doctor being stagnated. For how long? You can't write your exams. Imagine when you're supposed to go for your professional exam, you don't even have the finance to register for that, which comes in millions. Like the West Africa is in dollars. So you should know what Naira is and what our salary is to compare with that. At that point, that exam is the issue, is objective. So in order to make sure this does not happen again, you want to give it. And remember I told you that the person must have been pushed, stretched, that they can't bear anymore. That's when the whole strike thing comes in. So yes, it's not easy on anybody. It's not easy on anybody. So we always pray that God helps us.
All right. Now, I mean, this striking is a consistent, recurring thing. So what if these strikes are no longer, you know, giving the kind of change or the kind of impact that the resident doctors require? Are there alternative pressure mechanisms that, you know, the resident doctors plan to look into or implement apart from striking?
Let me put this response in a way of a question. If all doctors leave the country, who locks the clinic? I think that answers it, really. In the West, they need doctors. And Nigerian doctors are targeted now because they are resilient, they are intelligent, and they are very dexterous. They are resourceful. Okay? So it can't stop. The need for health workers all around the world cannot stop. So there is no how Japa Syndrome will be sorted out if our system, if our government system has not said enough is enough. Let us look into the health system, health sector, and try to sort out these problems. I also want you to know that it's not just the doctors. I don't know how many nurses, friends of yours, you still remember, and how much of them is still in Nigeria. All right? So this is not good alternative. So we pray it doesn't reach to that point.
So you're saying that the other alternative apart from strike is Japa?
If you can't get it right, you go into recess now. Yes, you go into recess. See, I want you to know a typical instance. We were 51 of us that came back to Nigeria and say want to practice medicine in Nigeria. We didn't train in Nigeria. The government did not train us. It's unlike those days when government sponsor people abroad in order to come back and help the country. The kind of government we have today, it's really unfortunate. The late Chinua Achebe said there was a country. Unfortunately, indeed. So now, we decided to come back to Nigeria because when you go to some of these Western countries, there you understand patriotism. You know that the flag of a nation is power, is important. Okay? Despite how bad things where in Nigeria, if a white person tries to mock our country, we deal with that person squarely. It's our country. We are the only one that have the right to talk about it. We try to protect our country, even abroad, even when we know that they were saying the right things, the truth about our country. So now we decided to come back to Nigeria. We say, let us be patriotic. Let us work. As of today, we're only 5 remaining in Nigeria.
Out of 51.
Out of 51 friends of ours, we're only 5 remaining in Nigeria. Okay? And last Christmas, some of them came back and they're like, oh boy, they take juju hole enough for this country. You see, so you don't blame them. It changes perception. It changes the whole thing. Imagine when it's as if you can't take it anymore. There's nothing working. It's only easy to say, I have to bail. The person has to leave. So we really pray it doesn't get to that, really. I just want to encourage the government. Let's look at the health sector. People are dying. Our people are dying. Okay? And it will continue until we say no. Let us look at the health sector. Both in the budget, both in implementation. Let us look at the health sector. Really. A country whose health sector is not strong, that country is really infected.
This thing you said now just makes me want to ask you, what structural reforms or what reforms would you, in your opinion, say that need to be implemented as soon as possible to make this strike almost unnecessary, you know, in years?
You know that the Nigerian government system is there's so much power to some particular officers that you may not really influence much, except you have somebody who is leadership oriented, a good administrator, and is ready to do something to work for the country. Okay, both from the governors to the presidency, all right, until we have someone who is sincere and who wants to invest. Somebody like Enugu, for instance, we have Governor Peter Mba. You can tell from his manifesto, from the time he started engaging people, you can tell, you can connect his manifesto, I mean the written one, the one he spoke engaging people, and the implementation he has been doing since he came on board. You can tell that somebody is ready to work, okay? And Enugu is so privileged to have him and his team. So these are the kind of people you say, let us look at, and this is when you say there is going to be light at the end of the tunnel. So structural reform, what do you need to do? It starts with the individual, a good leader, who is interested in the welfare of the people. Okay, so now we need to activate the health insurance scheme, and we have to make it work. It's one thing to say there is health insurance, and another thing to make it work. Not situations where a patient you need a particular drug to treat a patient and say it's not covered, and this person has nothing else to bring in from his or her private pocket. Okay, so our health insurance needs to work. That is one. Number two, the health system itself. There is need for a committee, a body that is sincere in looking into their clinical activities and where they have needs. Goes across the Residency Training Act down to even the doctor's remuneration and their comfort is very important. So if you look at these two things, you know that it will work for the doctor, it will work for the patient. If our health system is not up to at least average, I mean our health system in Nigeria today is not, most of the institutions are not up to average of what they need to run adequately. If you come to institutions that do not have some machines to really look into the body and help you with your diagnosis, there's nothing you can do. Ranging from issues of the the airway, down to even the brain, and even the blood. Okay? So, if you have, I think it's just leadership. If you have somebody who is sincere and is ready to listen, there are people intelligent enough to look into the health system and say, this is what the problem is.
Now, looking at the union, how united would you say that the resident doctors are across both the federal and state institutions when it comes to this strike? Would you say that there are some internal disagreements or things like that about this strike and the strike strategy?
Never. The Nigerian Resident Doctors Association we're a force to reckon with. We're so together that never. There is no issue from the president to the National Officers Council and expanded National Officers Council, I mean the caucus leaders, down to center presidents. I'm here representing NAD. And so are other persons in other centers across the country. And we have a voice. Why? Because we have a struggle. In Igbo adage, they say, before. When you say the truth, you don't need to remember what you said yesterday. Okay? So the National Association of Resident Doctors is a force to reckon with. And we are together across the country.
Now, what is your greatest, you personally, I'm asking this as a personal question to you as a resident doctor, what is your greatest fear and worry about the level of strike among the health sector in Nigeria today? What is your greatest fear? What is your greatest worry about it?
My greatest fear is the day we say we are going on strike and nobody says anything. That's my greatest fear.
No, by nobody.
I mean, look at what happened. The vice president say, I want to interfere. All right? So imagine we say we are going on strike on this issue and nobody, no government officer, nobody is moved. Let's see what they will do. That's my greatest fear. Do you know what will happen? Your thoughts is as well as mine.
I think you have to say it so that we can hear what exactly.
I really pray it doesn't get to that. Okay, but for every strike struggle, it takes away something pertinent, something quality out of the Nigerian health system. Okay, it's if you go online, you see a lot of our colleagues, even the ones abroad, everybody's angry, they keep remembering, how is it still like this, So it awakened some bad experiences, and these are points where people start making some decisions, Men, I'm tired, I'm done, and doctors continue to live in their numbers. So it's really scary. It's really scary.
Are you confident, or how confident are you that the federal government will actually, do something about your demands, or the demands that are being made by NAD?
My confidence has never been on the federal government doing something. My fear has never been on the federal government doing something. I think my confidence is in NAD, the synergy, the peace, the understanding, how dogged we are, and how determined we are to achieve result this time. Okay, so that's why it is called suspension, not calling off. Just suspended the strike. We did it before. We'll do it anytime we have somebody say, I want to try to come in and try to solve this problem. What we need is result. What we need is result. So I have confidence that if there is result, we're not going to go on strike. If there is no result, if you're still beating someone, the person will be crying.
Of course. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Ike Nnamani, for joining us this morning. I really hope that, you know, these demands being made by NAD will be fully implemented this time around.
I pray it is. It will help everybody in the country.
Yes, it
Thank
will.
you so
I mean,
much
all of
for
us
having
use the medical system, so
Yeah, that's right.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
right.
Thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you. Dr. Ike Nnamani is the President, Association of Resident Doctors, ASUTH. And Signature Morning will be back in a moment.